Alright everyone, we have reached Friday. I hope you are all well and looking forward to another weekend. No real surprise that today's video will be spent previewing Aberdeen versus Celtic in the Scottish Cup semi-final. That's the order they came out of the hat, by the way, if they even still have a hat. It's also alphabetical order, so I've not lost the plot or anything. I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on the game. We'll also do predicted 11s and we'll get insight on Aberdeen. Yes, we've got a supporter of another team on. That's how low we're stooping. I'm looking forward to the game this weekend. We've actually not been to Hampden yet this season, which is pretty rare. This is the longest we've gone in a season without playing at Hampden yet since season 2013-2014, when you may recall we didn't even play at the National Stadium that year. I remember Aberdeen putting us out of the Scottish Cup at Celtic Park that year, so hopefully not a bad omen or anything like that. But yeah, it's been a long old wait to play at the National Stadium. Last time we played there was the Inverness Scottish Cup final at the end of last season, so it'll be good to see the Celtic support packed behind that goal, but also probably all the way round to the other goal as well, and hopefully we can get a big performance and get through to the Scottish Cup final, which happens to be on May the 25th, that iconic date. Yes, two of these teams will make it through to that showpiece clash. A reminder there that the Celtic game is on two television channels this weekend. That's Premier Sports, and I'm even going to say Premier Sports 1, I believe, and also BBC One Scotland. So it's Aberdeen that stand in our way of getting to yet another cup final. And I don't know if you agree, but it feels a wee bit like Aberdeen have kind of been kept out our way this season so far. I mean, previously, in other seasons, we've kind of had a lot of memorable games against them, and it's really felt like Aberdeen have maybe not been a direct competitor for trophies, but they've certainly kind of been in our way to win a lot of trophies. And this season's felt a little bit different. I know we've played them 3 times already, but there was that one at the start of the season that just seems so long ago. What was it, match day 2? I was still living in Scotland at that stage. It was the day before I flew out here to Melbourne, so that's how long ago that was. 3-1 at Pittodrie it was that day. There was obviously the 6-0 victory we had at Celtic Park. Strange to say it about a 6-0 win, but it's almost kind of not really spoken about that much for whatever reason. It was maybe because it was in the midst of our Champions League campaign and kind of went a little bit under the radar. And then we did have that game right at the start of February, where we dropped points. We were really struggling at that stage. 1-1 draw at Pittodrie. But even that one kind of feels like it's not as memorable as like our wins at Easter Road or Fir Park. Maybe because we didn't win the game at Pittodrie, that's why. But yeah, I don't know if you feel like that. Aberdeen have kind of not been that relevant to us this season, and maybe as a result you feel like you're not that aware of how they're getting on. You probably know they're not having a great season. That's pretty obvious when they've gone through about 400 managers and haven't even made the top 6. But I did want to find out all about how they're getting on currently and how they're likely to be feeling ahead of this weekend. Certainly how their fan base are feeling. So I caught up with my friend Ryan, who runs Red Point of View, an Aberdeen supporters outlet. And I started off by asking him the very easy question of summing up his team's season so far.
Terrible. Nah, I think it's probably a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde situation. Although the last kind of 6 months have been more Jekyll than Hyde. But it's just been really, really strange not being able to kind of get any momentum at all. Obviously, as everyone knows, the European performances were really good. Probably didn't get everything that we deserved in those. But domestically in the league, it's just been terrible. Not being able to string any number of results together. So much so we've won less than 10 games all season, which just isn't really acceptable, to be honest. Especially, and we're not one to talk down the league, but quality of the league this season's been pretty poor throughout, and to not be in that top six as a minimum is pretty shocking, to be honest. And there's a multitude of reasons for that, of course, but it's just been another terrible, terrible season.
Good few managers as well have come through, haven't they?
Yeah, almost as many managers as wins, I think. It's, it's terrible. I mean, Robson, in hindsight, I think obviously got the job based on the kind of run of form at last season. I think what you've learned from that is that galvanising a group of players for a run in towards one kind of key objective of getting third is a lot easier than sitting down at the start of a campaign and planning recruitment, fighting on the European front, domestic front as well. And I think ultimately Robson just was he got found out. He was just inexperienced, and that's not his fault. Of course, he's going to take the job if he's offered it. So that was all a bit of a sort of sorry end to Robson's time at Aberdeen, because he'd been at the club for 10 years and different as player, and then in the backroom staff and in the academy. And then the Warnock thing, from my perspective, was a shambles, a circus, complete circus, should never have happened. And it tells you everything you need to know. It's like after 8 games, less than a month, that he couldn't be arsed and left. And then Peter Levine came back in, who, it's like, obviously Levine was in charge for the last game against Celtic, where we played really well. Obviously that 1-1 draw to Tawdry, and in hindsight probably should have just been given the job until the end of the season rather than fork out for Warnock. Although I do think Levine didn't want it. I think there was an element of that, why they went to get somebody else in. However, he's more than shown he's capable of getting results. Performance is still not great, but I think a lot of the squad have to take responsibility for that element of things as well.
Yeah, so it seems like you've learned your lesson maybe this time and brought in an actual new manager, regardless of maybe the form picking up slightly. Jimmy Tillene, apparently you're going with, so we'll wait and see how he'll get on. We'll have to wait until next season for that. He's obviously not going to be in charge this weekend. I think the general sense that Celtic fans have is that, this is a bit of a poor, struggling Aberdeen team who shouldn't give us too many issues at the weekend. However, I did see a tweet you'd stuck out, I think last weekend, highlighting some of the positives you've seen in recent weeks, and you've only actually conceded 1 goal in your last 4 matches, and that was to Simon Murray, who we now know is the best forward in world football.
Absolutely.
So my question is, are Aberdeen actually in a better place than maybe Celtic fans would think, and especially with that defensive record?
I think that the issue is even we don't know. And I think that the main issue is even the players don't know. I think the surprising thing with Aberdeen this season is they have managed to find a way to do it in the sort of bigger games. Mm-hmm. Well, I say do it, but they have managed to find decent performances in the bigger games this season. Obviously, you can take Celtic Park out of that equation. However, obviously the one at Ibrox, obviously different circumstances, and that was the tail end of last year now. As I say, European games, terrific. Beat Frankfurt at home, really respectable performance away. Drew with PAOK away, should have beat PAOK at home. And then obviously beat Hibs in the semi-final when we were in a really sort of bad patch of form as well. Managed to find a way, and I think there is an element of this group of players have sort of turned up on the bigger occasion, and it's those run-of-the-mill league games that they just not seem to have found any form or even look too interested in, to be honest. So couple that with obviously Levine's come in and sort of solidified the defence a bit more. I must emphasise that the performances still haven't been great. Look really lethargic, struggling to kind of create much up front. I do think it's probably a better place to be in than if it was Warnock leading us out at Hampden. God, what a terrible thought that would have been. But I think it'll probably Aberdeen fans expecting something in between, like the performance at Pittodrie and then the one at Celtic Park. It wouldn't be. Again, problem is nobody really knows. It's just whatever Aberdeen team turns up on the day. But again, I was thinking earlier, it's probably you would know better than me, but when's the last time Aberdeen actually beat Celtic at Hampden? 1990?
Is it?
Well, I don't know. I'm thinking that Scottish Cup final, obviously, but it's just every time we come up against Celtic at Hampden, it just doesn't really seem to be much fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot recently, especially under Brendan. It was always Rodgers v McInnes, wasn't it? And there was obviously people look at the kind of Tom Rogic final, but there was, I think, at least two other finals. There was other semis as well. I remember a Scottish Cup semi that we won comfortably. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. What about Bojan Miovski then? Because he's kind of probably the main one that Celtic fans would want. A lot of Celtic fans wanted us to sign him in January. Obviously didn't happen. He's only netted 1 goal in his last 10. So is he still your main danger man, or is there someone else we should be keeping a closer eye on?
Nah, definitely Miovski. I mean, as I say, it's 1 goal in the last 10. However, it's circumstances dependent. I think just with poor run of form, change of manager, the upheaval, and as I say, we've really struggled to create anything for him going forward. But given the service, and obviously does like a goal at Hampden, so should obviously still be marked as our main danger man. Duke's obviously been a bit more energetic and like his self of last season recently, just with his positive performances, and obviously McGrath has returned a really decent goal return this season, which is not surprised a lot of people, but a lot of people were sceptical about signing him at the start of the season, and I think he's probably been classed as our signing of the season, more so than or played a lot better than Clarkson, who was tipped for big things really. So definitely Miovski, but McGrath in midfield as well. I would say likes to pop up with a goal.
Miovski's quite a big game player as well, isn't he? Like, I feel like he usually, when he plays against the best teams, Celtic, Rangers, and in Europe, plays at Hampden, he usually scores in these matches. I mean, he scored a couple against us, at least 2 against Rangers this season, European ones. So he's definitely someone you don't want to be given a big chance to. There's a fair amount been made of the ticketing situation for this game. How many Aberdeen fans are we expecting at Hampden on Saturday?
Probably circa 10, 11, 12,000, to be honest. Obviously, not great, but given just all the factors that have been terrible, early kick-off, and the factors against Celtic, as I mentioned, that we have an absolutely abysmal record against at Hampden, there's not really much expectation of getting a result. So that probably factors into that, and yeah, it's not great. It doesn't look brilliant. It's probably similar to the game the semi-final against Rangers, where Ferguson scored 1-0 in the League Cup about was that 5 years ago now, where ticket sales weren't great, and the form going into it was pretty poor, but managed to actually get a result on the day. So hopefully it's something similar, but yeah, the ticket situation not great. I mean, obviously everyone will have their own opinion, but it's just like the 50-50 thing. It should always be that until you can't sell that, and then don't know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair enough. I just thought when Aberdeen got the 19,000 tickets, I just thought straight away that was a number that you weren't going to reach, because it's a semi-final. It's against us rather than against Rangers or Hearts. I think you would have had greater ticket sales for those games. And as I say, when you see the kick-off time and the team struggling, it just wasn't really a surprise to me. I think the good thing is that there's not going to be many empty seats. I think the stadium's going to be full pretty much. Certainly, mid 40,000 kind of thing on Saturday. So it should still be a good atmosphere, and you'll still hear the Aberdeen fans. So it should be a good one. What's the game plan, do you think? Will Aberdeen try to frustrate Celtic? Will they come for Celtic? What do you reckon?
To be honest, I think there wouldn't be a lot of issue with sort of going back to looking at our European performances and saying, well, that's the blueprint of how you have to approach a game like this, where, yes, it's all about being defensively sound, but Celtic aren't the Celtic of old, and there is frailties there, especially defensively. So when you do get the opportunity to press, win the ball back and counter, that the chances should present themselves. And it's just a case of obviously getting it to Miovski and hoping that he can take those chances when they do come. As you said, in these big games, he's been really good at doing that. It's just if we can be defensively sound at the other end and kind of maintain that for 90 minutes, which, as we've touched on, they have been a lot better at, but it's obviously a different kettle of fish at Hampden against Celtic.
Yes, a different task for Aberdeen this weekend, but I think it is important to just remember that they have, almost a bit like us, seemed to save their best performances for the high-profile games. They beat Rangers at Ibrox really comfortably, even more comfortably than we have at the start of the season. They were a couple of minutes away from beating Rangers again at Pittodrie. Rangers got what was that thing they got? A penalty. That was it, late on to equalise in that game. They've also, they had that 1-1 draw with us, where, they had chances. There was certainly a spell in that game where they could have gone and won it. Their European campaign was far from a disaster. They beat Eintracht Frankfurt, as Ryan said, 2-0 at Pittodrie. I know that was the final game and Frankfurt had already qualified. But, the 2022 Europa League winners also struggled a little bit when they had Aberdeen at their own place. That game was only 2-1, and I remember Aberdeen kind of missing a late chance in that game. So basically my point is that the issues for Aberdeen this season, as I say, a little bit like ourselves, has almost been the kind of matches they're maybe expected to go and win. And it's the ones where they've been underdogs, where they've actually put in some of their best performances, got some of their best results. So I think that's something we need to be really wary of this weekend. And that kind of goes on to their key players as well. People who relish the big stage. I think Bojan Miovski, as much as he has a poor recent scoring record, is still a guy who you do not want to give a big chance to this weekend. He'd probably be near the top of people in Scottish football you don't want to give a big chance to, because there's a fair chance that he'll pop it away. So I think they're a dangerous side this weekend. That's what I would say. And yeah, their season is only going to be classed a success if they win the Scottish Cup now. That's the only thing that can save their season. So it's fair to say they'll be putting all of their efforts into doing that. And that's something we've got to be wary of. Having said that, we're favourites for this game. We're pretty, healthy favourites for this one. And I just think when you get to this stage of the season and it becomes weekend to weekend football, there's not really any midweek football to come, bar one match, our penultimate match of the league season. I just think this squad of players over the past few years have really relished this kind of opportunity. When you get to just one game a week, it feels like they can just put all of their focus into that match, and it's almost as if they've only got 90 minutes at the weekend to shine. And I think you look at some of our best runs of form in recent times, even under Ange Postecoglou, and it's been when that kind of the distraction of midweek football's been away. I think that's when we've seen some of our best football. And I just get the impression the team are maybe starting to embark on a run like that at the moment. And I think they'll be, buzzing to get out there at Hampden first time this season and really put on a show for a big Celtic support. In terms of team news, you will find out, or we all will, later today from Brendan Rodgers what the state of play is. I think Liam Scales is likely to be the big question. Is Scales going to be fit to return for this weekend? I'm quite relaxed about that. I think if Scales is fit and Rodgers picks him, absolutely fine. I think equally, if he's not fit, or even if he is and Rodgers decides not to go with him, I'm happy to continue with Mike Nawrocki. In fact, Nawrocki has made my predicted 11, which you can see now. And yeah, I think a couple of changes are coming. And there's certainly a few things we can discuss. Yeah, I'd like to see Nawrocki continue. I liked what he brought to the team last weekend. I think of all the defenders we have, Carter Vickers and Nawrocki is the partnership I want to see going forward. Yeah, midfield, based on absolutely nothing at all, I think we'll see Callum McGregor return to the starting lineup. Yeah, I don't know if I even have to qualify that statement at all. I just have a feeling that he might be back. And yeah, I've been swithering about the left wing position all week. As I said yesterday, none of Forrest, Yang or Palmer being picked would massively surprise me. I could see a world where any of those three started on the left. I've kind of been leaning towards Forrest throughout the week. I think Rodgers might go with Palmer, just because Yang was pretty poor last week, and Rodgers, kind of any opportunity he's had this season, he's kind of talked down James Forrest's condition, basically, in his advancing years. He did it in his first interview he did with Celtic TV, days after taking the job back in the summer, and I thought it was interesting. He made some kind of comment of, James Forrest is here from a previous spell and I know what he can do, but his career's at a different stage now. So I can only assume that James Forrest isn't going to start anymore for Celtic. And I've kind of been thinking about that this week, because I would like to see him start just to find out, but maybe it's not the right time to do it. So I think, given that, and given that Yang's been poor over the past couple of games, he might go with Palmer, but as I say, none of them would really surprise me. I've gone for Kyogo up front. I think that's what will happen, but I've even contemplated whether Adam Ida deserves to start this match, just with it being a cup game. I don't know, is there a kind of tendency to change something? I don't think anyone would be massively disappointed if the team came out and Ida was starting. I think that's a good place to be in, but I do think he'll probably go with Kyogo with Ida coming off the bench. But yeah, potential game changers there off the bench as well, the likes of Forrest, Bernardo, Ida, options we can bring on. So yeah, I'm feeling good generally, and I'll get that in before we stick this on screen. The officials for the match, referees Don Robertson, assistants Graham Stewart and Stephen Traynor. Fourth official is David Dickinson. On VAR is Greg Aitken, and he'll be assisted by Andrew McWilliam. And yeah, just an opportunity, I think, for the team this weekend to continue the feel-good factor. It's been a terrific couple of weeks, really. I know we didn't win at Ibrox, but really since we came back from the international break, it's kind of just been feeling better and better about things. And we've got to the stage now where people are kind of eyeing a double. And, if we win the game tomorrow, then people will be feeling pretty good about a double, I would say. Just given the way the league seems to be heading, a lot of work ahead of us. But basically, it's been a really good week of results, more so elsewhere than actually with Celtic, but I think a big Celtic victory tomorrow and a good performance would just have everyone feeling even better. And yeah, Brendan Rodgers and Hampden are a match made in heaven, certainly from his first spell, unbeaten there. And I was thinking this yesterday, when you think about Brendan Rodgers' Celtic memories so far, and hopefully there's plenty more to come, He's had them in lots of places, and Celtic Park's an obvious one to go to, but I kind of feel like Hampden's where your mind goes first. That's where he's lifted most of his Celtic trophies. It's where some of the finest days supporting Brendan Rodgers Celtic have come, and this is obviously his first visit to Hampden and his second spell at the club. Last time he was there as Celtic manager would have been the 2018 League Cup final, the Ryan Christie one against Aberdeen. So I think he'll be itching to go, the team will, and hopefully we can just make some more brilliant memories at Hampden. I hope you enjoy the game wherever you're watching, whether you're going to the game like Stevie and many others, whether you're watching around the world like I will be. Enjoy the game, and hopefully we can just continue that feel-good factor, get through to another Scottish Cup final, and then just park that until the end of the season when it'll be waiting for us and we're hopefully going for a double at that stage. I'll be back on Monday. Don't forget to subscribe as we go for 10,000. Loads of you have done it recently, and it's really, really appreciated. Have a good weekend, and yeah, I'll chat to you next week.